afternoon and welcome back to Football League World TV. The Fans Voice series is continuing with a focus on West Bromwich Albion this afternoon. I'm your host, Alfie Burns, and I'm delighted to welcome Matt from WBA Report. Matt, how are you getting on this afternoon?
Not too bad, thank you, Alfie, mate. And I'm looking forward to the season beginning the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. So much to talk about with regard to West Brom. We're streaming across Facebook, YouTube and Twitter this afternoon. So any West Brom fans joining us want to get themselves in the comments, please do let us know your thoughts on the Baggies, or just any general EFL fans want to give their opinions on Steve Bruce and the going on at the Hawthorns, then do that as well. So then, Matt, this show is going to be looking ahead to the new season. But while we've got you here, we'll look back on what went wrong, what went right in 21-22. We'll start with what you think went wrong.
Ooh, where to start? I could be here for days. I think, in all fairness, the season started so promisingly under Valerian Ismail, and then a combination between managerial faults of the playing squad, faults of the people running the club, I guess, the decision-making, people who put Ismail in charge and failed to really back him somewhat significantly, I guess. In the summer, it ended up in one sort of royal mess, didn't it? As I said, the tension between players and management was there, and fallings out, poor tactics, poor displays, and then Steve Bruce comes in, and if anything, it gets even worse. But here we are in the summer, made a few new additions. Let's not really look back at the last one, I guess.
Any positives to pull from last season?
I'm really struggling, if I'm honest with you. I can't really even think of one. I suppose the emergence of Taylor Gardner-Hickman would probably be the one small shining light from the last campaign.
On the man that took over from Valerian Ismail then, Steve Bruce. He's obviously a real talking point amongst West Brom fans, just EFL fans in general. What are your thoughts on him? Do you think he's the right man to move West Brom forwards?
You say that everyone's got an opinion on Steve Bruce. I'm not totally convinced he's the right man to lead Albion back to the Premier League. He wouldn't have been my choice replacing Ismail last season. He wouldn't have been my choice to keep him on in the summer. However, I think any manager of your club, you've got to give him backing. And whilst the concerns of neutral fans, rivals, and Albion fans are all valid, of course, he's never well liked at Newcastle. His stint at Villa ended miserably, and as we've just alluded to, last season he failed to hit the ground running. There's some real poor displays again under Steve Bruce's tenure. He never really got that kick, got that lift that you want from a manager coming in during the mid-season. However, as I said, we've got to back him. I think he's shown his pedigree through some of the players we've brought in, and ultimately, I think he's only second behind Neil Warnock in promotions won to the Premier League, something along those lines. So he's definitely got proven pedigree in that department too. So we'll back Steve Bruce. Hopefully, he can deliver another promotion, and I think he'll be keen to prove some of those critiques wrong as well.
I'm glad we've kept that bit quite short looking back. It's a time for looking forwards with the new season on the horizon. We'll start, though, with the transfer window. We're still in the thick of the window, but there's been some quite impressive business done by West Brom. Not deal upon deal, but some really good signings, Matt. Who's standing out for you?
Yeah, spot on, you're right. I think due to his previous connections at the club, OK Yakuslu is the one Albion fans are probably most excited about. I think as a championship team, what you want to try and do in both summer and winter transfer windows is bring in sort of Premier League proven players, or at least players that can perform to a Premier League ability. When you're a club like Albion, or let's look at someone like a Norwich or a Watford, Burnley, you want to bring players who can play at the level you're ultimately looking to get to. And Yakuslu proved that at Albion when we're in the Premier League and were relegated under Sam Allardyce. He's a real standout for that final couple of months of the season. So it's going to be great to see him playing the Championship. I think it's a really big signing. One Albion fans are delighted about. He's clearly got a nice little connection with the club there. But that's definitely not me writing off or sort of dismissing the hopes Albion fans have for John Swift and Jed Wallace, because they're two standout Championship performers across the last couple of seasons for sure. And they could really be massive in any promotion hopes we have. You sort of alluded to there as well. Maybe it's only the 3 deals, but they've seriously addressed 3 massive areas for Albion. Last season, we lacked a spark. We lacked that sort of creativity, that nous in crafting through opposition defences. And it's a big problem, especially in De Valera and Ishmael. So we've addressed that massively with John Swift and Jed Wallace. We've just seen what he can do for Millwall as well. Goals, assists, set pieces, brilliant signing.
You mentioned Yokuslu as somebody that the West Brom fans are excited to see back, but I think that the 2 deals that the sort of your Championship rivals will be looking at is definitely John Swift and Jed Wallace coming in, given what they've done in the Championship, you know, albeit at different clubs, but in the same team, what they could do alongside the likes of Daryl DK, Grady Diangana, Carlin Grant and Callum Robinson for now. Obviously quite a bit of speculation surrounding his future. There's quite a lot of firepower on paper there for West Brom. Do you think that they've got enough in the bank already to sort of get the girls to get you at the sharp end of the table?
I'd like to think so, yeah. I've got massive hopes for Daryl DK. I think everyone associated with the club does. I think we'd all love to see him do well, obviously after suffering a cruel injury straight after joining the club. He was supposed to be the man to try and fire us to promotion under Ishmael. So I think everyone's hoping he does well. Carlin Grant last season, despite doubts Albion fans may have over his overall play and all that sort of stuff, you know, you can't argue with his goals tally last season. Without his goals, I think Albion will be quite close to the relegation zone, which shows the impact he had. Grady Diangana looks a man inspired in pre-season. I think Albion fans are clamouring for him to start at Middlesbrough on Saturday. Callum Robinson, you say, may be on his way out of the club, but even so, figures you can't really argue with. The one slight maybe addition change I'd like to see Albion make is probably bringing in one more striker in case the worst happens again to Daryl DK and he suffers an injury. There's rumours Cameron Archer is probably the man all Championship clubs want, isn't he? So he'd be a good addition. Dwight Gale's obviously gone to Stoke. I wouldn't have been too against seeing Gale back at the Hawthorns. So maybe another striker would be nice. But as you mentioned, with Jed Wallace and John Swift, it's their rival clubs. I'm sure they'd all be in for him, or all be in for both players. Sorry, Premier League clubs as well. I was quite surprised didn't make a move for Swift. So there should be the reinforcements we need to score the goals to get us in around the top 6 at the very least.
I'll put you on the spot a little bit here, but if you had to pick an attacking unit to take to the field against Middlesbrough on Saturday, what would you be looking at?
Yes, I'll be looking at Jed Wallace on the right-hand side, Swift in that little pocket. I would go Diangana on the left with Daryl DK up front, meaning Carlin Grant would be dropped. Extremely harsh, I must say. And then even we're forgetting about the likes of Matt Phillips and Robinson, as you mentioned. So on paper, it's promising, but we learnt last season it's not all well, as we know from the EFL in general. The game's not played on paper. That would be my attacking unit going into Middlesbrough.
In terms of the outgoings then, Sam Johnson, Cedric Kipre, Romain Sawyers, Andy Carroll, no longer with the club. That was probably expected. No real surprises in there. We've discussed Robinson. Are you expecting sort of any eye-catching outgoings in the remainder of the window? I know there's a long chunk of the window still left.
Yeah, the one would be Callum Robinson. I think Preston and the club linked obviously his former club, and it's down to both parties to see if they can thrash out a deal. It just feels like his time at Albion has come to, I suppose, a natural end. Bit of tension between him and supporters as last season sort of, slowed down, I suppose. And in all fairness, you can't really argue with his figures. As a Championship attacker, you won't find too many better. It's just not quite there now for Robinson. That might not make too much sense, but Albion fans will can understand that the relationship he perhaps once had with the supporters isn't there. Steve Bruce obviously looking to free up funds. Robinson could be a way of doing that. I'd probably add Kyle Bartley to the mix. I think Albion fans wouldn't be against seeing him depart the club again. Someone whose time might naturally have come to a close. Albion maybe looking to sort of refresh that back line. Matt Clark, could he return to the club? And Romain Sawyers as well. You mentioned him there. I've always been a big Romain Sawyers fan. I think it was great when he returned to the club, a real inspiring story, and I definitely would have kept him on. I think the one thing Albion lacked last season in the centre of the park was, it might sound daft, but someone who could really pass the ball. I think you look at Jason Malumbi, Alex Mowat, Jake Livermore, and they're not really sort of crafty players. Tony Mowbray, when he was at the club, used to use the phrase "plays with lovely soft feet." So Albion fans may recognise that saying, and none of those three players really have that, as opposed to Sawyers, who was so key under Slaven Bilic in recycling possession, moving the ball from defence to attack, and sort of in that link. Sad to see him go. Hopefully, though, Yokuslu can fill that gap.
It all kicks off then this coming weekend. I'll just run you through Albion's first month. They've got Middlesbrough away, Watford at home, Blackburn away, Cardiff and Hull at home, Huddersfield and Wigan away. How important do you think it is for Steve Bruce that he gets a fast start this season?
Yeah, massively important. I really do. I think that probably stems from the doubts that are surrounding Albion and Steve Bruce himself, particularly. We saw, as I mentioned, at Newcastle, his relationship was fractious from the get-go, wasn't it, with Newcastle fans? It seriously broke down at Aston Villa. We'll remember that infamous cabbage incident. But yeah, I do think Albion fans aren't totally convinced by Bruce. A fast start, though, would, as I said, be able to get everyone behind him. And he's got my backing. And I think if you are going to mount a successful promotion, but you're going to have a successful season, there needs to be that togetherness. And we've seen far too often in recent years, the atmosphere at the Hawthorns hasn't been what it should be. It's been fairly toxic. There's a lot of division between fans for quite a long time now. I can even stretch back to the Tony Pulis days. So I'd like to see Steve Bruce get off to a fast start to keep that sort of togetherness and unity with the club, because I can honestly say without it, I can't imagine us doing too well.
I mean, I've just listed off the first 7 fixtures there, which would see West Brom into September. It's difficult to know until the season starts what would be a good points return from that. Obviously, 21 out of 21 would be absolutely fantastic. But I just sort of circled 15 plus points. And how realistic do you think that is from the opening burst of fixtures?
Well, I think the first two are the tough ones, aren't they? I don't think you could really get too tough of fixtures in terms of Middlesbrough under Chris Wilder. We saw last season they were just getting better and better as the season grew. Away from home, the Riverside's going to be bouncing, and that will really be a tricky game. I'm not confident at all of 3 points. I'd probably take a point, if I'm really honest with you. Maybe that's a bit sort of cautious. And Watford, obviously, relegated from the Premier League. They're going to have quality. The likes of Sarr, Dennis are still at the club, so don't really know the challenge they'll provide, how tough that'll be. Could be very dangerous. So it's not looking great those first 2 games. However, moving onwards from there, I'd back Albion to probably at least win. I would 5 of them, if I'm honest with you, that 15-point mark. Maybe that's me dismissing opponents. I think Huddersfield were in there, weren't they? Look at them last season, and it's the EFL for you. It's so unpredictable. I would like to back Albion. I always like to give them the benefit of the doubt. 15 points might seem actually a reasonable amount, if I'm honest with you. Let's say on paper we lose the first 2 and win the next 5. That would be ace. But I'll back us to get 15 points. Yeah.
I know it's difficult at this moment in time before a ball's been kicked, but I'm going to push you for a prediction then for the season. Where do you think West Brom are going to end up? And do you think that there's the possibility that this season they return to the Premier League?
When it comes to predictions, Alfie, I'm quite biased from an Albion point of view. And I do get a feeling, the more I think about it, I picture this world of Steve Bruce proving his critics wrong. Finding a club where he can get that backing and one last promotion, one last hurrah type thing. We've got the playing squad, as we mentioned. You could have said the same last season. We've made the reinforcements. If we can get one or two out the door, I think it would represent a fairly successful window as things stand. And I do like to think Albion will at least mount a playoff promotion bid. So top two might be a bit of a stretch. I think I'll go Albion finishing 5th and winning the playoffs, because why not?
Nice and positive.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just cut you off there, Matt.
No.
That's the end.
You've got to be positive.
That's the end of the look at West Brom for the fans' voice. Thanks to anybody that's joined us across Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and thanks to you as well, Matt, for coming on. I'll just give you a little opportunity to plug what's coming up on WBA Report this season.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for having me. We're just looking to improve on how we went about things last year. Obviously, it was our first season of doing the podcast. We've learned a lot. We just want to try and sort of enhance the content and make it more engaging for the listeners. Sort of try and grow a community. Obviously, I think on social media with football clubs, I mentioned Albion can be as divisive as any club, and if we can help the community sort of stay together, stays as united as possible. I truly do think it will have an impact on the season. So hopefully we can play that part. Anyone listening, we're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all the usual places. So hopefully you can join us for our first episode of the season, following on from the Middlesbrough game.
Absolutely. I'd encourage anybody to go and have a listen. Some really good content going out on the podcast. On Football League World TV, though, we've still got 2 shows coming up today. The Fans' Voice is continuing with a look at Millwall in the Championship. Matt, do you think they're likely to be one of West Brom's rivals for the top 6?
It's interesting. I think the loss of Wallace will be a blow, but Gary Rowett has been a proven Championship operator for quite a few years now. I'm excited by a few of the signings they've made. Fleming from Holland is a bit of an unknown quantity, so I'd be interested to see how he gets on. Likes of Jamie Shackleton, Charlie Cresswell from Leeds as well. I can see Millwall perhaps pushing for the top 6 as they did last season and have done on a couple of occasions. Yeah.
And another look at Oxford as well, down in League One. So we'll see how they get on. 2 great shows to finish the day on Football League World TV. So make sure you tune in for them. But between now and then, take care.